Hey there, welcome. Today I wanted to talk about empathy versus compassion, and I want to kind of talk about an expanded notion of empathy I've come to realize. So there's this concept of mirror neurons that we have where two people or multiple people together can be observed to have similar nervous system patterns where we almost mimic the nervous system of the other person on an emotional level, on an abstract level, on a feeling basis. And there's some beauty and goodness to this where we can understand people's plights and pains. We can connect with each other and we can share good moments. We can be happy and joyous and laugh together. And when we have kind of let down our barriers and our judgment, our excessive labeling thinking mind, and we develop a rapport with people or with an individual, and we kind of become vulnerable to each other's feelings. And this is one of there's probably some adaptation, evolutionary reason for this that we could talk about. But I want to talk about what I think is a problem with this system of empathy. And I believe that there's a similar process happening when we watch a show. We can tap into the feelings of the character, of the moment. I also think there's a certain level of this letting go of our barriers and our stiffness, even to just enjoy a landscape or to, really embody the feelings that music can create in us. I think a lot of it is letting go of some stiffness, of some control, and letting the waves and the energy and the stimulus of the environment dictate our feelings. I think mirror neurons are touching on a pattern of consciousness that relates to many things we do. And I think it links to very much relying on external situations to bring us our pleasure, our feelings, our varieties of emotions and experiences. In some ways, there's nothing wrong with this. This is just part of the flow of life, like things bouncing around in this infinite, landscape of the universe, beyond land, to sky, and to, abstract realms of dream and so on. But the issue is it kind of can go out of hand to the point where we don't really know how to handle a set of stimuli that doesn't feel good for too long. We don't know how to handle conflict. We don't know how to, embrace somebody feeling negative or in pain or angry. We don't really know how to deal with things we don't like, just whether it's a song or a movie or, the way an environment looks, to the point that some people will just go into a room and it's so yucky to their perception, to their habitual reactive tendencies, that they almost can't even be in the room because it's just the way it looks, the way it smells, the way it is organized could be so abrasive to their vulnerability that they can't do it. For me, for instance, this is the case with big groups of people. It's so hard to be at Costco or any place where there's just lots of people. No one's really considering you and in the environment, and we're all just kind of bumping into each other or almost bumping into each other, and that I find that very stressful. But that's not their fault. That's not the world's fault that have this reaction of stress. But I think there's something deeper to this, just as much as I think there's something deeper to enjoying a song I really like. There's this letting go of control, not really using my present consciousness, and letting the environment affect me, whether that's somebody's emotions or the character on a show with the soundtrack or the beautiful sunshine, and all the bad things too, like a gray day and we're just around industrial buildings and there's pollution, or it's a busy day at the grocery store and people are impatient and all moving at different rhythms and in each other's way and it's noisy. We develop these multi-reactionary patterns, like a domino effect, where we've learned to respond to these different environments in different ways. There's some similarities with most of humanity, but I think we need to learn how to detach from this. We need to learn how to distance our consciousness from getting too engrossed in the stimuli the environment creates in us and our habitual reaction of continuing a certain stimuli. So for someone, like a busy party is fun, this heightened stimulation, it's affecting them. There is this environment the same, but their nervous system has learned to create excitement and joy and yada yada, whereas mine has learned to create anxiety and tension and stress and irritation and so on. But I think the core of it is not just how the environment affects us, but being affected by it at all. And I'm learning that both through, the literature, the research of yoga and meditation and these different dharmic pathways, but also just in my own experience, that we can kind of not be affected by the environment. And this is where I think there is a conversation to be had about empathy and compassion. Empathy is kind of feeling what another person feels. Putting yourself in their shoes or understanding their sadness and kind of having that tingle in your own experience. Compassion is a bit beyond this. It's more like you have love for the person and you want to help them and actively help them in an appropriate way, like a way that makes sense. If you can't help them, then the best help you can give is just being a figure of love that is there and present and not kind of going down into the depths of sorrow or anger or despair. And that's where a difference is often noted. Some might disagree because in the end these are abstract words, but when we have compassion for somebody, we don't need to feel the negativities or the things they're feeling. We can just love. We can just be there with love, unaffected, just happy to be there and aware and clear in our awareness, so that if there's something we can do to help, if we have a course of action that is obvious to us, we will be motivated to do that. And that's kind of what compassion is. And I feel like this is a good way to approach a lot of our stimuli in life. So I'm kind of learning this as I work, as I'm doing manual labor outside, landscaping. I'm not always doing the things I would wish to do in the moment. And sometimes these things are hard on the body and they require maintenance and like extra effort to do in a safe way, so that I'm not like hurting my joints or hurting my back or my arm or my neck or something. But I'm kind of learning to create my own emotions with my willpower. And I've been aware of this for a long time. I've known this for years due to meditation and due to different topics related to the New Age world, like Qigong and Taoism and different layers of Buddhism and so on. But it's not easy to put into practice, and I've still relied, and I still do rely on lots of pleasant experiences in my life. I still rely on media and shows and movies and games and tasty food and pleasant encounters with friends and people around me. I still rely on nature looking beautiful. And there's some intelligence to this, surrounding ourselves with the things that create good feelings. Well, that makes sense. Why wouldn't we do that, right? It makes life easier. You can relax into your environment and it uplifts you. But inevitably, the world, the universe, existence, has things that we won't react well to. So this is on topic with many things I've talked about in the past, where a big part of our suffering is simply how we react to the world, how we choose to respond to it, or how we habitually react. At one point we've been taught how to react to something, or we just had a spontaneous reaction at one point in our life. And then it almost creates these neural pathways or these habit trains where we react like that in the future. And then we build that pattern over and over and over again to the point that it's almost automatic. It's kind of before thought, before rationality, before our awareness. And then it's not consciously a choice for most people to react to their environment. It's almost automatic. But at one point it wasn't. And for the most part, if we practice mindfulness, we practice awareness and practice discernment, we can take hold of our present consciousness and be creative with our feelings, be creative with our responses to the world. And this is very different than what I think is related to that mirror neuron phenomena. I'm not going to act like I'm a neuroscientist and I know everything about that. I know a very tiny amount about it, but I do believe that our research in it is also limited, and we're trying to figure out this crazy biological machine that is the brain. And I think mirror neurons are relating to something that is about letting go of our willpower a little bit, letting go of the innate capacity of our present consciousness. We want to almost like rest and like fall into the world. We fall into the stresses of work. We fall into the woes of our environment. We fall into the pleasantness of music, and we fall into the video game world and its pulls of reward. But whether on the bad and the good, the negative feelings and the positive feelings that we can experience when we don't take hold of our awareness, the fact that we let it go so often and we create that habit, the more likely we are to be swayed by the environment. And we can't control everything in the environment. We can't control other people's emotions. We can't control what's in front of us at every single moment of the day. We can't control even if a movie is gonna really be something that clicks with us. We can try and vet, try and filter out what's gonna more likely be something we habitually like. But for the most part, there is a level of uncertainty. But what has 100% certainty is that we are here. We exist. We are conscious right now. Yeah, we will later fall asleep and be unconscious, but while we are conscious, we are 100% existing, for sure. And that's never not going to be the case. We can stipulate about what happens after death or what happens in dream and all this, but while we are here, if you can even hear this, you are 100% conscious. You might not have the expanded consciousness of a Buddha at this moment or whatever, but you're here and I'm here. And we can take control of that consciousness. It's not even separate from us. It's not even like taking control, me using my hand to grab this dried leaf. It is the very essence of our existence, the very fact that we are aware, that we are here. That is the thing that can change our emotions. It can change our thoughts. It can change the stimuli in our bodies. And this has come about mostly because life throws curveballs at me. Not bad, nothing too bad, just stuff, difficulties, struggles in terms of housing and affording life, struggles of coworkers who they're just trying to live their life too, but they have all their problems and they have all their things, and you feel it and you go through it. But you can't really have it affect you every single day, or else life becomes unbearable. So there has to be a way to allow beings to suffer, beings to do their thing, to live out their karma, to feel the things that they feel, even if they're not nice or positive or good, without being affected. And there is. And this is probably very obvious for certain people watching. I'm sure this is obvious for some people. But the trick is not caring. It's more about compassion, where we love them. And if we see with patience and rationality a way to help, we do. But if we don't, we just sit and we listen, but we remain in love. We remain joyous, we remain sturdy in our equanimity, sturdy in our happiness, in our own consciousness and the overall presence that we have. We don't let it get ripped away by what's happening around us, to other people or anything. And I've learned that the continuous attachment to physical pleasures and entertainment actually makes that harder. It's not causing it to be difficult. It's just I'm taking time where I let go and I'm not taking control and being creative of my emotions. And instead I let the habitual system, the automatic system, do its thing. And when I put the right things in front of me, the right music, the right food, the right sensations, it feels great, it feels amazing. But when things come that aren't in my control, that aren't really things I'm habitually positive towards, it's tough and it's hard to regulate the reactivity system that happens automatically. So the more I meditate, the more I go through my day and I'm very conscious and mindful in a simple manner of just ordinary existence, the more I'm able to actually just sum up and muster up feelings of goodness and their infinite variety. This video has a larger purpose, and that links to what I've been talking about, where we need community, we need cooperation, we need a world where we hold each other's hands and we do things together with clarity and communication, consent and courage and honesty and compassion. But we're very far from that. And when we have those opportunities, they're very short-lived. They're sometimes not that impactful, and a lot of times we just go back to our daily lives. But part of the reason we do that is because it's a tumultuous territory to live with other people, to exist long-term with other people. I think this is why it's so common for people to just complain about their bosses and coworkers, because we let them affect us. Sometimes there's just complaints, just corruption, But oftentimes it's petty shit, and we know it is. And we've just been conditioned to do that because everyone else does it. And it's not the way to go. Because we're just giving them power. We're just giving them power to affect our emotionality, even after work sometimes. Work's just one example. There's many examples. It can happen with our family members. It can happen with our friend group. It can happen in our relationships. It can even happen to the things we like. People that do play video games and do watch movies and shows all the time, they're just complaining about it. I've been guilty of this at times. I'm just doing it because it's part of my routine, and sometimes I really like something, but then oftentimes I have all these criticisms and complaints about it, and I'm just letting it affect my state of being when I actually have control over a large portion of my state of being, especially with practice. And this will lead into another topic in another video, but this is about how simple some of these things are. Our present awareness is just really simple. It's not anything fantastical necessarily. It's not something in an image. It doesn't look like a Buddha. It just is here right now, what it is. It's not going to stay that way either. It's not some solid image. And that's also the simplicity of it. There's no staticness other than beingness itself. And so the teachings of mindfulness, the teachings of awareness, they're simple, they're common. There's a million books out there about them, but they're not wrong. At the end of the day, we need to be able to take control of our present consciousness to create love, to create beautiful experiences, at least for ourselves. And then ideally that can cascade into a world that other people can do that too. But part of the issue is how we empathize. It's how we let other things decide our emotions. And the more we practice distancing ourselves from that in order to create our own feelings, I think the better off a lot of us will be. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Om Sai Ram.